Hello, I'm Nobby Clark, welcome to my workshop. I've received a really wonderful gift for my workshop, quite a surprise actually, and I'd really like to share the gift with you. I have already had a look inside the box, so I do know what it contains. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move the box onto the floor and bring out the various bits and pieces to show you in detail. So bear with me a second. This box is actually quite heavy, so I've got to be very, very careful. There we go. Well, first bit out of the box is a sewing machine motor. Quite nice. And to go with the sewing machine motor, there's a foot pedal. I'll pop those over the back there, out the way. It's not a sewing machine though, I'll tell you that now. There's this. I don't believe this has got anything particularly to do with the actual gift itself. I think this is a mount to put a buffing wheel onto. You see it's got a tapered spindle on this end with I guess a left-handed thread. I think that's to pull a buffing wheel inwards so it doesn't spin off. But I'm sure I'm gonna find a use for that. There are these two sort of bearings. I guess they've either got brass or bronze bushings in there, and there's also two other ones, two sort of quite tiny ones as well. These, by the way, when I looked at these, they're made by Picador. I've got quite a few bits and pieces that I've picked up over the years, made by Picador, an English company. And on the back side here it says this is the patent numbers. It's called Toolboy. And also a warning on here not to drill into the bushing, because this is a self-lubricating bush. So I guess this probably is bronze, like an oil light bushing, I imagine. There's a pulley wheel. Doesn't seem to work with anything that's contained in the box, and it doesn't have a groove on here, so I'm wondering whether that perhaps was part of the sewing machine side of it. There's a load of drive belts, and there's like a pulley shaft as well. This bit is very, very rusty though, so I think that would need to be, I don't think that will clean up. It's so badly pitted. I think a new shaft would be required there. So pop you over there. There's that. I don't know what that is. That doesn't particularly seem to relate to anything really. And now the main item is this. It's a beautiful tiny lathe. Just going to move this box out the way so I don't trip over it. Right, I think it's absolutely wonderful. It's the brand on this is Wizard. It's made by an English company. Because I'd already looked inside the box before I decided to do this little video, I tried to do a little bit of research on the internet. There's a channel that I've looked at many times called lathe.co.uk, and they deal primarily with British lathe manufacturers, milling machine, manufacturers, and it's an absolute wealth of information on on British lathes, and I gather this lathe, these lathes made by under the Wizard name initially, were made by a company called C. Lane and Sons, and they made the lathes from, I think it was about 1946 to the early to mid 1950s. After a short period of time, they were obviously challenged over the Wizard name on here, sort of cast into the casting of the body of the lathe, because somebody else was already using that name. It may be, I found that the Wizard name linked to a woodworking lathe, so it may have been that. So they had to remove the Wizard name. I presume the mould was altered to take this out, and they had a little plaque on here with it was then called the Lane micro lathe, and then markers it under that name. So because this has the Wizard name on it, I guess this must be sort of fairly early production and probably made during the 1940s. Rather nice, because I was made in the 1940s as well. There were quite a lot of similar designs of lathe around the same sort of period, and a bit of further research comes up with another British manufacturer, Adept. Adept made small lathes, and they also made a hand-operated shaper as well, which are quite sought after apparently. And if you look at pictures of the Adept lathe, it is almost identical to this one. Now I know that Adept lathes were copied by quite a number of people. There was a copy of it made in Australia and also in the USA, possibly under license to Adept. I don't really know, but possibly. The difference, not very many differences between the Adept lathe and the Wizard, only in that on the base here the Adept lathe only had one mounting position to it. This one has two mounting positions, which I think perhaps that makes this a little bit more stable. I don't know, but anyway, this is absolutely wonderful. I've not sort of really done much to it so far. All I did basically was check that everything was moving okay. The only problems I found was that the lead screw here was jamming and squeaking at the back end here. I found the reason why it was jamming in that the little winding handle here was clamped on too tightly, and there wasn't enough end float to let it move backwards and forwards okay. So I did just adjust that, and what I've also done is just very lightly oiled everything on it, because this I assume has been in storage probably in quite dry conditions, and everything was very dry on it. So I've just gone over it and just gave the ways a light oiling, and just wipe some oil over everything else, just to sort of preserve everything on it. So I've given that sort of a nice bit of a clean up. But obviously I'm going to go through it all and check everything out. Also the cross slide wobbled quite badly, but even for a tiny little lathe like this, the cross slide and the compound slide have gibs in them as well. The top slide I've not done anything to. That's moving okay, and the cross slide, as I say, was wobbling, so I just adjusted the the gib screws, and that's moving quite nicely now. Has a nice sort of quite an old style tool post built in, and I think this will probably take 1/4 inch tool bits. When these lathes, from what I can make out from looking at a very old advert that I saw for one of these from the 1950s, when you bought the lathe it came with a faceplate which isn't present here, and there were various accessories offered for it, one being the 4-jaw chuck, presumably this one, which is made by, it's called the Bernard chuck, which I guess possibly could have been made by Pratt Bernard, who make chucks for my Myford lathe. Both my Myford lathe chucks are made by Pratt Bernard, so the chuck may have been made by them. So I guess that they were looking for up to other people for accessories for this. The tailstock chuck here, I don't know whether, I don't think that may be made by them. It's got a brand on here, I think it was HDM. The tailstock and headstock both have Morse taper 0, so this is on a sort of a tiny, well, the tiniest I guess, the Morse taper, and of course there's a Morse taper on the headstock so that you can use centres for it as well. I suppose possible the centres might have come with the lathe when you bought it, I'm not really sure, but they've then listed quite a number of extras you could buy. So if you bought the basic lathe as an extra, you could buy the chuck, and there was a motor offered as well. So I suppose if you didn't want to source a motor from someone else yourself, you could use the motor that they supplied. But obviously at some period somebody's bought a sewing machine motor to run the lathe on. I just tested quickly the motor to see if it was running okay. It all seems to be absolutely fine, and because it has a foot switch, the foot switch will vary the speed of the motor as well, which I guess is going to be very, very useful. I mean, I'm absolutely delighted at this, and I can see so many little things that I could make for the lathe as well. All sorts of accessories that I could make, that will give me lots of little projects to do in the future. What I would like to find is a 3-jaw chuck. I mean, I do use the 4-jaw chucks on both of my lathes, and it's very, very easy, albeit for me rather slow, to dial in and centre pieces of material. I could see it might be a little bit difficult with this one, particularly there's no chuck key with it. So first project is going to be making a chuck key for this one. It's going to be a tiny little chuck key as well. Keep it in scale to the lathe itself. So I'm going to try and find a chuck for it. I mean, I guess the ideal chuck would be to try and find one, an Emco Unimat chuck. I mean, I used to have a Unimat lathe, that was the first lathe I ever owned, which I bought before my workshop was built. And when I bought that, really to see if home engineering, model engineering was going to be for me or not. Obviously when I decided that this was going to be a fantastic hobby, the family suggested perhaps, you know, getting a really nice workshop for the back garden, which I did, and getting it sort of ready for the workshop to be delivered and built. I bought a second-hand Chinese mini lathe, which I've shown on my channel before, in rather sad condition, but I managed to sort of refurbish that, and really to sort of help finance that and other things, I sold the Unimat lathe, which immediately I'd sold it, I had a seller's remorse. I wish I hadn't done it. I wish I'd really kept the Unimat, but anyway, it's gone now. But anyway, possibly the Unimat chuck would be really nice, because the Unimat chucks are quite thin in design, so I think they would match into this really nicely. Unimat chucks have a 12x1 metric thread on the back of them, and I have taken the chuck off this one. This one is 1/2 inch 16 BSF, so I'm pretty sure if I could find a Unimat chuck, I could machine up an adapter to connect it to the headstock. Unfortunately, things like Unimat lathes have more than doubled in price since I sold mine, and the Unimat chucks on their own go for colossal amounts of money. My hopes of finding one at a price I could comfortably pay for one are, I guess, a little bit remote, so I'm not sure what's going to happen there. I just have to keep looking out for one, possibly at the next model engineering exhibition I go to. I'm going to keep a sharp eye out for one there, if I can find one at a slightly more affordable price, but we'll just see what happens, basically. So there we are. This, I mean, the features of this are obviously really nice. It's all beautifully made. Not that the Unimat lathe wasn't nicely made, and the Unimat had a colossal range of accessories for it as well. On the Unimat, the ways were actually, I think there were 12mm, two 12mm, presumably silver steel rods that the cross slide and the tailstock ran on. But this one has a proper cast and ground slideway on it, or it's so I think this is just very much better. It's got a sort of a V groove under here. So I think this is much nicer made, basically. Similarly, the top slide is better than the Unimat one. The Unimat one also ran on two rods. This one is a proper machined dovetail on here, as I say, with a gib in here as well. So I think that the construction of this is very much nicer than the Unimat. Unimat being made in Austria, but I like this because this is made in England, which I really love. But there we are. I just really wanted to share this this little present with you. There's probably a lot more to tell you about it when I learn a lot more about it, so I will make lots of sort of follow-up videos for you on this, and as I learn a lot more about it, I can sort of share my joy and the information with you. So, well, there we are. Thank you for joining me in the workshop and enabling me to show you this beautiful little lathe. And as I make various bits and pieces for it, as time goes by, I'll show them too. As I say, the first thing I will do is make a chuck key for it, because at the moment I can't get the jaws out. And I do want to sort of clean all of this up as well. what I plan to do is, as this didn't have the faceplate, is to make a nice faceplate for it as well, which I'm probably going to make out of aluminium, and then put slots in it, you know, so you could clamp parts to it as well. So there we are. I shall say no more. I could probably talk for hours on this, but I'm sure you don't want that. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me in the workshop, and I'll see you with another video very, very soon. Bye bye for now.